I didn't think much of it at first. The way her hands kept smoothing over her dress. The way her eyes flicked toward the entrance like she was waiting for someone. We were standing outside the Peterson Automotive Museum in LA. Yeah, that museum, the luxury cars, the glass elevators, the whole deal. It was our 20th anniversary. My name's Nathan. I'm 46. Live in Santa Clarita, California. This dinner was her idea. And that was weird because Alyssa never gave a damn about cars. I could drag her to a dealership and she'd act like we were touring a landfill. So when she suggested we celebrate 2 decades of marriage at a high-end auto museum with a rooftop steakhouse, I figured maybe she was finally trying. She looked perfect. A little too perfect. Nails done, hair curled, makeup like she was prepping for a photo shoot. I joked, "You look like you're about to sell me a Bentley." And she laughed, but it was short and tight. I asked if she was nervous about something. She said, "Just excited. 20 years, Nathan. We made it." Then she glanced at her phone, faked a smile and said, "I left your gift in the car. I'll be right back." I watched her walk off down the ramp toward the garage. Heels clicking, clutch bag swinging. And then this kid, maybe 16, grease under his fingernails, red mechanic's shirt with a name patch that said Eli, slides up next to me like he's about to ask for a lighter. "Sir," he says quietly, "I don't mean to butt in, but your wife put something in your drink." I blinked. "What?" He nodded toward the restaurant. Inside, second table near the back window. 2 whiskey tumblers already poured. She came in 10 minutes ago. Stirred powder into the glass on the left. I work maintenance and security rotation. I saw it on the camera. I went to check the table when she left. There's residue on the napkin. I stared at him. His voice didn't shake once. He added, "It looked real bad." I thought maybe it was a joke, but I don't think it is. I pulled out my wallet and handed him $40. "You didn't see me panic." "Got it." He took it, nodded. "Be careful, man." Quick note. Before listening, share which city or country you're watching from. Then I walked into that restaurant like it was just another night, smiling, joking with the hostess. Alyssa waved from the table like everything was fine. I pulled out my chair, sat down, and glanced at the glasses. Left one closer to her. Let's see how this plays out. Alyssa leaned across the table and smiled like we were high school sweethearts. "There you are," she said, voice all warm and light. "I thought you got lost." "Nah," I said, pulling out my chair. Was just taking it in. Place looks sharp. She'd already ordered drinks. 2 whiskey tumblers. Hers was on the left, just like the kid said. Amber liquid, 1 large cube in each glass. I glanced at them and said, "Cheers to 20 years." She lifted hers and I lifted mine. We clinked gently, and in that tiny moment, while her eyes stayed on the glass, I tilted mine just enough to swap hands. Left became right. Right became left. She took a sip first. Just a small one. Then she set the glass down slowly and watched me. I met her eyes, smiled, took a sip from my glass. Technically hers, and nodded like nothing tasted off. She relaxed into her chair and gave me this proud little grin, like she'd pulled something off. The server brought the appetizers, crab cakes, and some kind of fancy beet salad she liked. "So," she said, picking up her fork, "have you enjoyed the last 20 years with me, or just barely survived them?" I chuckled. "You already know the answer to that." She leaned in. "Do I?" We went back and forth like that. Flirty, light, but it was fake. I could hear the effort in her voice, like she was trying too hard to keep it breezy. Every couple minutes, she'd glance at my drink. I kept sipping little bits, never swallowing much. She downed hers faster, and around the 5th or 6th sip I saw it start. First, her hand missed the fork on the table. She laughed it off, but her fingers were twitching. Then she blinked hard, like she was trying to clear something from her eyes. "You okay?" I asked. "Yeah," she said too quickly. Just a headache." Her words dragged. The smile didn't reach her eyes anymore. Then her whole left shoulder jerked. She tried to keep talking, but her jaw clenched and she dropped her glass. It shattered across the floor. People turned to look. I stood up. She made this low, gurgling sound, like her throat had stopped working. Her arms started flailing, sharp, uncontrolled movements, and she slid out of her chair and hit the floor hard. "Somebody call 911. I shouted, kneeling beside her. I think she took something, maybe a reaction, please. She was full-on seizing now, eyes rolled back, limbs stiff and shaking. I kept my hand under her head so she didn't hit the tile. The manager came running. A couple diners were already on the phone. One guy tossed me his jacket to put under her. "She was fine a minute ago," I told the manager. "She said she had a headache." Then this. Paramedics showed up fast. 10 minutes, tops. They loaded her onto the gurney, strapped her down, checked her vitals. One of them asked, "Do you know if she's taken anything tonight?" I nodded, jaw tight. "That's what I'm trying to figure out." They gave her oxygen. Her limbs were still twitching when they wheeled her out. "Can I ride with her?" I asked. "Hop in," one of them said, already moving toward the doors. I climbed into the back of the ambulance and sat there, hands clenched, eyes on her face while the medic checked her pulse again. She was sweating now, face pale as hell. She wasn't faking this. Not anymore. And I knew, without a doubt, whatever she meant for me had just hit her instead. I didn't feel guilt. I didn't feel relief. I felt cold, focused. This wasn't some impulse. This was planned. And whatever came next, I'd be ready for it. They rolled her into the ER and I stayed close, walking behind the gurney with my hands shoved into my pockets to stop them from shaking. A nurse tried to hold me back, but the medic said, "He's the husband. Let him through." The room was bright, cold, loud. Monitors beeped. One nurse was shouting vitals, another started hooking up IVs. Alyssa's eyes were half open now, fluttering, unfocused. A doctor turned to me. "What happened?" "She collapsed during dinner," I said. "Seizure." She said she had a headache. That was all. He gave me a look like he'd heard that answer too many times. "Any drug use? Prescription meds? Did she take anything tonight?" I hesitated. "No. But I think someone slipped something in her drink." That stopped him. "Who?" I took a deep breath. "I think it was meant for me." He blinked. "Explain." I told him everything. Not the drama, not the emotion, just the facts. That a kid working maintenance had pulled me aside. That he'd seen her pour something into the glass. That I switched them. That she drank what she'd prepared for me. He stared at me for a beat, then nodded and turned to the nurse. "Page toxicology. Get security. We need a toxic screen immediately." 2 minutes later, a hospital security guy showed up. Then 10 minutes after that, a detective came in, mid-30s, heavy coat over a cheap button-down. He walked right up to me, showed his badge and said, "Detective Mendez, you Nathan Calder?" "Yeah. Mind stepping into this room over here?" They took me into a side office. He shut the door and leaned against the table like we were old coworkers. "Start from the top," he said, "and don't leave anything out." So I told him, again, word for word. He wrote things down but mostly just watched me. When I finished, he tapped his pen. "How's your marriage been lately?" I let out a dry laugh. "You want the polite answer or the real one?" "Give me the real one." "We sleep in separate rooms. Haven't touched each other in over a year. She checks my bank statements more than she checks in with me. I figured we were just coasting toward divorce. Didn't think we were jumping straight to murder." He nodded slowly. "Any big insurance policies?" "Standard life insurance through my work. Nothing fancy." He raised an eyebrow. "That you know of?" A nurse knocked and handed him a plastic bag. "We logged her personal items." He opened it right there in front of me. Out came her phone, a crushed prescription bottle, no label, and a folded-up chemical safety pamphlet with hazard warnings in red print. He flipped through the pages, then glanced at me. "We'll need to look into this further. Be my guest." Then he picked up her phone. It wasn't locked. He scrolled for maybe 30 seconds, then his whole posture changed. "Who's Derek?" he asked. I felt my stomach turn. "No idea. According to this, he's the one she's been planning this with. For months. Messages, calendar entries, even supply lists. She called it Project Freedom. He turned the phone toward me. I saw a text. After his heart gives out, we vanish. No loose ends. I love you. I didn't say a word. I just stared at the screen. Mendez looked up. This wasn't spontaneous. They planned it. And I'll bet there's more. We'll need your full written statement. Of course. And this kid, the one who warned you, can you get us a name? His patch said Eli. Works maintenance. Young, maybe 16 or 17. We'll pull security footage. But if you can find him, do it. He might have saved your life. I nodded. My hands were still clenched, knuckles white. Mendez tucked the phone into a separate bag. You've just stepped into something big, Mr. Calder. Don't go anywhere. I'm not leaving. I want every single answer you find. He paused at the door. You'll get them. Just be ready. They're not going to be easy to hear. They took me straight from the hospital to the precinct. No cuffs, no drama. Just a quiet ride in the back of a black unmarked car with the same detective, Mendez, riding up front. Inside, they gave me coffee, sat me in a little room with gray walls and a busted chair, and hit record. Start from the beginning again, Mendez said. Everything you saw, heard, felt. Leave nothing out. So I did, word for word. From Alyssa asking for dinner plans to the glass switch to her hitting the floor. He didn't interrupt, just scribbled in a notepad while the other officer, this skinny guy with buzzed hair, typed into a desktop. When I finished, Mendez set his pen down. We searched her purse again. There's more. He pulled a plastic evidence bag out of a folder. Inside was a cheap black flip phone. A burner. No case, no stickers. Just numbers. Phone was taped to the inside lining of her bag. She didn't want anyone finding this one. Buzzcut pulled up a monitor on the wall. A chat log filled the screen. Derek, double the dose if you think he's building tolerance. Alyssa, we'll test it Saturday. Museums booked. Rooftop, just us, no cameras. Derek, new life starts when his heart gives out. I'll bring champagne. I couldn't stop staring. I didn't blink. Mendez said, that phone's been texting a man named Derek Hartwell. Works over at the Glendale Water Treatment Facility. Chemist. 41. Divorced twice. Real charmer. He didn't wait for me to respond. He waved to Buzzcut, who brought over a manila envelope and dumped the contents on the table. Another insurance policy. This one from an out-of-state company. Newer. Signed 6 months ago. 2.5 million, Mendez said. She's the sole beneficiary. I shook my head slowly. Jesus Christ. She filed it without your knowledge. Forged some of the paperwork using your info from the health portal. The underwriters never flagged it. Buzzcut handed me a printed message. Alyssa, he won't see it coming. Heart attack. Fast. Clean. Done. Derek, better be. You said no autopsy if we get the setting right. I looked up. You guys gonna bring him in? Mendez nodded. Warrant was signed 20 minutes ago. Patrol's rolling up now. My jaw clenched. What are the chances this guy's got more in his place? Mendez smirked. Let's just say, I wouldn't drink the tap water at his house. An hour later, he walked back into the room, holding a tablet. They got him, cuffed at his apartment. Was still in his lab coat. He dropped into the seat across from me and tapped the screen. Found multiple vials in his fridge. Labeled by hand, not commercial. 2 types of beta blockers, a nerve agent from a lab in Mexico, and a compound we haven't identified yet. His home office had printed floor plans of the museum. GPS logs tracking your phone. He'd been running surveillance for months. I stared at the tablet, then leaned back, jaw tight. He wasn't just helping her, I said. He was building a whole operation. Mendez nodded. He was her co-pilot. But this thing, they treated it like a science project. Buzzcut stepped in again. His hard drives loaded with spreadsheets, dosage charts, medical notes, and footage. There's surveillance of you entering and leaving your house over the last 6 weeks. I stood up. So they were watching me while I watched Netflix. Pretty much. Mendez grabbed the burner phone, held it up. This thing? It just cracked your wife's whole story wide open. I looked at him dead on. Then let's keep cracking. Mendez didn't waste time. After they booked Derek, he brought me into the back room and laid it all out. 2 cardboard boxes sat on the table. One was filled with printouts, the other with flash drives and manila folders. Buzzcut plugged a USB into the station's desktop and pulled up a file directory that looked more organized than a police database. He clicked on a folder labeled Calder Active Plan. The first file was a full spreadsheet. My name, age, weight, allergies, prescription meds, blood pressure readings, column after column. Mendez said, "This is a full medical profile. Accurate, too. Stuff only someone with access could have gotten." "How the hell did they get this?" I asked. "Turns out," he said, flipping a folder open, "your wife submitted a request for your health records through your HMO portal. Claimed it was for wellness planning. Had your birthday, last 4 of your SSN, even the doctor's ID number. The form was signed with your forged signature." I clenched my jaw. "And nobody flagged it?" "Not until now," he said. "But what they used it for, that's where it gets worse." He pulled out a single sheet. Typed, double-spaced, highlighted in yellow. Compound, propranolol plus clonidine cocktail. Target reaction, cardiac arrest, non-traumatic presentation. Risk window, 4 to 6 hours post-ingestion. Avoid fatty food pairing. "They weren't trying to make you sick, Nathan," Mendez said. "They were trying to kill you without a trace." Buzzcut handed me another folder. It was labeled Alt Methods. Inside were printed notes, handwritten plans, rough sketches, timelines. One page was titled Trailhead Option. Another, Garage Setup, Brake Lines. Another, Mugging Scenario, Pico Boulevard. I flipped through it like I was holding blueprints to my own murder. Trailhead Option detailed a weekend hike we'd taken 2 months ago. Said I favored the left side near the drop. Included weather forecasts, trail traffic patterns, even gear weight. The plan was to cut my bootlace and push me near the ridge. Another had photos of my SUV. It listed where to slice the brake line, how much time I spent on the freeway, and the average speed on the 210. They had backup plans. Layered contingencies. I wasn't married to a desperate woman. I was living with someone who'd project managed my death down to the goddamn calorie count. "I don't know how long this went on," I muttered. Mendez corrected me. 14 months. That's how long Derek had been compiling this data. Texts, GPS, photos, health reports, he'd been cataloging you like a lab rat. And she fed him everything he needed. I leaned back in the chair and rubbed my temples. She made me believe she just stopped caring. I thought the distance was her checking out, not gearing up. Buzzcut pulled another folder from the second box. It had timestamps, passwords, receipts. One receipt stood out. A cash withdrawal for $2,000. Same week she filed the second insurance policy. Mendez said, "We think that was payment for materials, or to someone who helped source the chemicals. We're still digging." I pointed at the files. "So this wasn't a heat-of-the-moment thing. This was built. Engineered," he said, "and precision-tested." Derek kept notes on similar cases. Victims who died under similar circumstances. Autopsy red flags. Chemical trace timelines. They had test cases, Nathan. Test cases. He nodded. Animal control picked up 2 dead dogs in Derek's neighborhood last month. Tox reports came back positive for the same compound she drank. I went silent, just sat there, staring at the screen, the notes, the woman I used to share a bed with. Mendez crossed his arms. "This was never about getting away from you. It was about erasing you." And in that moment, I stopped thinking of her as my wife. She was a predator, and I'd been the mark. Mendez called me back to the station the next morning. Said Derek had started talking fast. I sat in the same busted chair while they played the footage. Derek sat across from 2 detectives in an interview room, hands cuffed to the table, face pale and greasy like he hadn't slept. "I didn't come up with it," he said, voice shaky but clear. "She found me." The detective asked how. "She messaged me on a chemistry forum. pretended she was a widow, said she was lonely, had questions about water treatment for her dad's place in Palm Desert. It was fake. All of it. He leaned in, eyes wide. But she knew what to say. She made me feel like I mattered. Said she liked smart men. Said she hated liars. Said she wanted to build something new. The detective pushed. When did murder come into it? Derek didn't even flinch. Month 2. She told me her husband was abusive, controlling. Said he made her feel dead inside. She said she didn't want a messy divorce. Said he'd never let her go. I clenched my fists watching that. If she was so dead inside, she sure planned like someone real alive. She wanted it clean, Derek said. Quick. No blood, no cops. Something medical. I told her about lab compounds that could cause cardiac events without trace markers. He paused. That's when she started sending me info on him. His meds, blood pressure, diet, his schedule. The detective asked about the museum. Derek nodded. She picked the place. Said it was symbolic, his thing, not hers. That she'd make it look like she was celebrating. But really she was setting him up to die surrounded by his favorite distraction. He smiled for a second. Disgust twisted in my gut. 2 months we rehearsed, he said. I walked the museum twice. We tested powders, first in water, then in bourbon. Used stray dogs from the neighborhood. Tracked symptoms. Dialed in dosage. Mendez froze the screen. Here's where it gets worse. He hit play again. The detective asked, Is this the first time you two planned something like this? Derek shook his head. We already did one. Her old boss. He fired her after some HR complaint. She was pissed. Said he needed humbling. We cut the brake line on his Tesla. She timed it when he was heading home down Laurel Canyon. He crashed into a retaining wall. Died instantly. The detective leaned forward. You're saying that was intentional? Yes. She mapped the whole route. Picked the curve. Told me which night he stayed late. I rigged the car in the parking garage while she kept watch. Mendez looked at me. That case was ruled accidental. No suspicion. Until now. Back on the screen, Derek looked straight into the camera. I thought she loved me. I thought we were starting over. But by the end, she got cold. She started talking about loose ends. What did she mean? She meant him. Her husband. She said once it was done, we'd be safe. Clean slate. No baggage. He swallowed hard. She called it an act of mercy. I stood up. Mercy. Mendez nodded slowly. He's turning on her. Fast. Trying to cut a deal. She groomed him, I said. Same way she groomed me into trusting her. She picked him for his access. His skills. Nothing else. Buzzcut stepped in. Prosecutors already drafting attempted murder charges. They'll add conspiracy, vehicle tampering, animal cruelty, you name it. I didn't feel satisfied. Not yet. But now I knew the truth. Every move she made was calculated. Down to the second. And the only reason I was still breathing was because some teenage kid saw something and decided to speak up. Mendez called me again 3 days later. His voice was tight. We found something else. You'll want to see it. I met him at the station. He didn't say much. Just led me down the hall into a back conference room. Forensics had laid everything out on a table. This was pulled from a private locker under your wife's maiden name, Valerie Granger. Rented in East LA, cash only, no ID checks. One of our guys flagged it after tracing some shipping receipts. The table was covered in binders, envelopes, and thumb drives. Every piece labeled, cataloged, handled with gloves. Mendez handed me a folder first. Recognize any of this? Inside were copies of my health records, both old and new. Bank statements, social security info, even a forged copy of my signature authorizing policy changes. Then came the kicker, another life insurance policy. One I'd never signed. $2 million, effective 8 months ago. She planned for multiple versions, Mendez said. Different carriers, different dates, different causes of death. I flipped through another binder, printed out PDFs on toxicology, chemical reactions, drug half-lives. Half the pages were marked up with highlighter and tabs. Buzzcut stepped in and dropped a separate manila envelope on the table. This one stands out. I opened it. Inside was a document titled, Elderly Witness, Contingency Plan. It read like a screenplay. Target Mildred Dawson, age 78. Lives alone. Walks terrier past house daily. Seen Derek near front door on at least 4 occasions. Potential threat to exposure. Below that, more text. Action. Stage break-in. Entry via rear kitchen window. Masked intruder. No sign of connection to suspects. Victim to resist. Escalate force if necessary. I felt my stomach twist. She was going to kill Mildred? Mendez nodded. Accidental home invasion. The plan was to blame it on gang activity. They had the timing down to her afternoon walk. She usually leaves the door unlocked. Derek was going to be waiting inside. I turned to the next page. A spreadsheet again. Line items. House value. $660,000. No living relatives. Local trust. Deferred to probate. Timeline to estate transfer. 7 to 10 months. Estimated inheritance claim via neighborhood will. Forged. They weren't just trying to kill people, I muttered. They were turning it into a business model. Buzzcut pulled up a tablet with photos from the locker. Inside were bundles of fake documents, sample wills, rental agreements, even IDs. There were chemistry books with pages dog-eared and bookmarked in red. One binder had handwritten notes comparing various poisons, ranked by traceability. Derek admitted she kept hard copies of everything, Mendez said. He just never knew where she stored it. Until now. And the neighbor? I asked. She's safe. Yeah, Mendez said. We pulled her aside yesterday. She didn't know anything beyond seeing Derek at your place a few times. Said she thought he was a contractor. I leaned against the wall, arms crossed. This was never about just me, I said. She would have kept going. She was scaling up, Mendez replied. She had templates, steps, roles, timelines. This wasn't a panic decision. It was a pipeline. I stared at the table one more time. The files, the plans, the math. She had a list, I said quietly, and I was just first on it. The story broke the next morning. Every major outlet ran it with some version of the same headline. Poison plot at Auto Museum anniversary dinner. I saw my own face on a tabloid at a gas station, right under a picture of Alyssa being wheeled into the ambulance. They cropped it tight, made it look like I was standing over her with a blank stare, like I'd done something to her. Couldn't go home. News vans parked outside the house. People drove by slow with phones out the window. Reporters knocked on my neighbors' doors. I packed a duffel and crashed at my brother's place in Valencia. He didn't ask questions, just handed me a key and cleared space in the garage. I didn't sleep much those first few nights. I was too busy watching the world twist itself into knots trying to make sense of what happened. My phone lit up constantly. Some friends texted to say they were sorry. Others didn't say a word. One guy I used to golf with asked, "You sure you're not exaggerating?" Alyssa always seemed stable. "Yeah," I replied. Stable like C4. Her family went on the offensive. Her sister did an interview saying Alyssa had been trapped in a controlling marriage and was targeted in a smear campaign to avoid a divorce payout. They painted her as the victim, the loyal wife. Meanwhile, Derek was in a holding cell singing like a canary, and I was eating leftover pizza on my brother's couch while strangers online debated if I was lying. The DA's office set me up with a trauma counselor. They said it would help for trial prep. I didn't expect much, but the therapist hit a nerve quick. She fits the profile of a clinical manipulator, he said. Calculated empathy. Charm when it serves her. Cold detachment when it doesn't. Yeah, I muttered. She could cry in front of strangers and not blink while planning a murder. She's what we call a functional predator. You weren't stupid. You were methodically groomed. Hearing it out loud didn't fix anything, but it helped me stop blaming myself. I didn't miss her. I missed the version of her that never existed. Later that week, I sat down with the lead prosecutor, Martinez. No nonsense, zero fluff. We've got the digital trail, the physical evidence, the confession, she said. But don't think this'll be clean. Why not? Because her defense is smart and vicious. They're already building a narrative. Which is that you were emotionally abusive, that you pushed her into mental breakdown, that this wasn't a plan. It was desperation. I let out a laugh. She forged insurance policies, tracked my movements, studied toxicology manuals. That's not desperation. They'll still push it. Say she broke after years of being controlled. Expect testimony about how you isolated her. Made her feel worthless. She lived like a queen, I snapped. She had the master bedroom and my goddamn credit card. I believe you, Martinez said. But this is court. Not truth. It's what the jury feels. She leaned forward. You need to stay calm. Direct. No jokes, no sarcasm. They'll try to make you snap on the stand. I nodded. Let 'em try. She looked at me for a second. Good. Because when she gets up there and turns on the waterworks, the whole room's gonna shift. And you'll have 5 minutes to rip through her lie. The courtroom was packed. Local press lined the benches. Spectators with nothing better to do showed up like it was a damn soap opera. Derek's trial came first. He pled guilty to conspiracy and testified under a cooperation agreement. They brought him in wearing a wrinkled suit 2 sizes too big, eyes down, voice flat. She planned everything, he said. Every single step. I just followed instructions. The prosecutor asked, Did she ever pressure you into anything? No, he said. She didn't need to. She made it sound like we were building a future together. Who suggested the museum? She did. Said it was poetic. That he'd die surrounded by the thing he loved more than her. People in the jury shifted when he said that. Even the judge looked disgusted. Derek walked the court through the chemistry, the planning, the dosages, the test animals. He admitted to the brake line cut on her boss's car. He admitted they forged insurance documents. And he said the break-in plan for Mildred was her idea. She said we couldn't afford mistakes. Said people who saw too much had to go. When the judge read his sentence, 25 to life with eligibility in 15, he just nodded and sat back down like he expected it. Then came her trial. She walked in wearing soft gray, hair pinned up, no makeup, like she was playing a grieving widow in a low-budget drama. Her lawyer called her a sensitive soul, said she was emotionally battered, isolated, and manipulated by a predatory man. That man being Derek. They said I left her to rot in a cold marriage, that I shut her out emotionally, that the museum dinner was a desperate cry for help. I sat there staring at her. She never looked back once. When it was my turn to testify, I kept it straight. No yelling, no jokes, no emotion she could use against me. I told them what happened the night of our anniversary, how she stepped away before dinner, how a kid warned me about the drink, how I switched the glasses during the toast. I described her collapse, the seizure, the ambulance, the hospital. I let the evidence speak, the chat logs, the forged policies, the plan to kill a neighbor, the surveillance files. Her lawyer tried to poke holes, claimed I misread things, said the switch could have been a misunderstanding. I looked right at him and said, the only misunderstanding here is thinking she deserves sympathy. That shut him up fast. By the time closing arguments wrapped, you could feel it in the room. Everyone knew. She wasn't some scared wife. She was cold, calculated. The jury deliberated less than 3 hours. Verdict: guilty on all counts. Attempted murder, conspiracy, insurance fraud, animal cruelty, intent to commit murder. The judge didn't hold back. Life in prison, without parole. She didn't cry, didn't flinch, didn't blink, just stood there like she was already gone. Outside, the media swarmed. Mics in my face, cameras everywhere. I kept it short. She chose murder. Now she lives with that. Then I walked off. No reporters, no cheers, just the sound of my shoes on the concrete as I left that courthouse behind. After the sentencing, the noise finally started to fade. The cameras stopped showing up. Reporters moved on to the next scandal. People quit whispering at gas stations. I sold the house a month later. Too many memories. Too much rot under the paint. Took what was left of my savings and moved 2 hours north, to a quiet little town near Paso Robles where nobody knew my name. No one asked about Alyssa. No one cared what I'd been through. It was perfect. Every now and then, I'd get a text from Eli, the kid mechanic who changed everything. He stayed in LA, got a full ride through a community outreach scholarship the PD helped set up. Last I heard, he was in academy training. Wanted to work homicide. We met for lunch at a diner halfway between our towns. He walked in wearing a fresh polo, badge clipped to his belt like it belonged there. "Didn't think I'd ever see you again," he said, sliding into the booth. "You earned this meal 10 times over," I told him. He smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. "I almost didn't say anything that night," he admitted. "Thought maybe I was being dramatic, or that I'd get in trouble. I didn't hesitate, but you did." He nodded real slow, like he was still processing what it meant. "That kid didn't just save my life, he changed his own by doing it." We shook hands in the parking lot, and he said, "I'll see you again, Mr. Calder." "I know," I told him. "Just not under sirens next time." Life moved on after that. I started dating again, slow and light. No stories about the past. No drama. Just regular people doing regular things. No one got too close, and that was fine. For the first time in years, I wasn't watching my back. I was just living, and sometimes that's enough. Because sometimes all it takes is one person doing the right thing. Would you have believed the warning if a teenage mechanic pulled you aside like that? Drop your answer in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more true story breakdowns.